Is day 1623 going on. Make sure that I'm on. Let's see if yep, looks like I'm on now. Okay. Okay, so let's start over. 1,623 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss. This is on Fort Bliss, y'all. Because of security breaches, and we know who was in charge of security, DES Thomas Kane. We know from his letter, we know from his resignation, you call it a retirement, whatever, way too early, and his letter that there he was just up to no good, y'all. He was just up to no good, and Jag was up to no good. We know that the leadership absolutely up to no good. We have that documented over and over and over again. We know that Jesus Nieto, so Sean Bernabe, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, he is a disgrace. He is treasonous. He needs to be stripped from his uniform and absolutely arrested. And he needs to pay for his crime of being a traitor, of being a Judas, of being treasonous against all of those soldiers, volunteer soldiers, our sons and daughters that took command, took orders from him, right? Took orders from him. He is absolutely a traitor and needs to pay for that big crime. And in the United States, as President Donald Trump has said, and this is why there's going to be, in our opinion, a lot of gnashing of teeth, and filleting, gnashing of teeth, crying, wailing, because they're facing the death penalty. They're absolutely facing the death penalty. And they should. They absolutely should, for what they've done to our country, what they've done to our military, the exploitation of our military, the covering up of the murder of a whistleblower at Fort Bliss, in the borderland, where hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied of children were trafficked and now mostly dead. They absolutely, on the American dime, on Fort Bliss, through the camps, so much so that the camps, now Fort Bliss is calling it a death camp, so much so that these failed leaders, these treasonous traitor leaders, have now done so much damage that our military base around the world, Fort Bliss is being called a death camp. This is absolutely unacceptable, and these leaders, absolutely, Michael X. Garrett, General Garrett, and many more, absolutely need to be arrested, stripped from their uniforms, and they need to be charged with being a traitor, being treasonous, and they need to pay the price for what they've done. Because Fort Bliss is right there in El Paso on the border of Mexico. And we know from the meetings, we've been keeping track of the meetings going on there that are really treasonous meetings. very criminal meetings. At the least, they're criminal meetings, and between unequals in there in El Paso with Mexico. The latest even being with the president, and now the president of Mexico has now agreed to um, taking back the people that have flowed through that country. And, you know, the politics of it, I cannot say that we fully understand the politics. We don't have all the intelligence, but we can say this: we know enough that the El Paso cartel is connected and intertwined with the Mexican cartel, that it is deadly, that it is all deadly, that it is all a criminal syndicate, that it all is exploiting both the United States and Mexico. The Americans, absolutely, in the United States, and the citizens and those that live in Mexico have suffered greatly from this El Paso cartel, intertwined with the Mexican cartel, and that they are absolutely connected. We know that that is connected with China. We know that. That is reported widely in the news. And so, and we know that all of this talk about the Panama Canal, the control of the Panama Canal, being in the hands, giving a lot of power to China, is absolutely a threat to the United States. And of course it is. Of course it is. Um, China needs to rule in China. We do not need China taking over Mexico and then the United States, right? Mexico needs to control Mexico, and the United States needs to control the United States, and Panama needs to control Panama. But that's not, these geopolitics. Um, it gets very, very greedy. It gets very greedy, and I cannot say that I totally understand it. So it's very hard to. I can just say this: it is absolutely confirmed that El Paso cartel is up to no good, hurting El Pasoans, that they are traitors to the United States, acting with the Mexican cartel, who are traitors to Mexico, and and they are absolutely uh, in business relationships with China. And it is absolutely recorded. It wasn't from me saying it, it was recorded that a Chinese individual in California in the United States illegally was arrested just recently for trafficking in storage units, tactical move storage units, military equipment, military weapons, and American military grade weapons, American uniforms, American ammunition, etc., etc. Probably other gear, and who knows, with all the children just disappearing and considered mostly dead, right? But that those shipments were for North Korea, and it's just that just can't happen. That just can't happen unless there is compromised security and compromised leadership. And that is really the important thing, is to say, no, we cannot tolerate this compromised and corrupt leadership. And corrupt and compromise security and border security. And so, and Americans overwhelmingly feel that way. That was this whole mandate of this past election. Um, they're just saying, no, no, this cannot be tolerated. And on Fort Bliss, the murder of our son on Fort Bliss, um, absolutely exposing El Paso, exposing Fort Bliss's security breaches, exposing corrupt and compromised leadership like the Directorate of Emergency Services, Thomas Kane, and the command um, of generals over Fort Bliss, the absolutely allowing the exploitation of our young volunteer sons and daughters, doing them so much harm, doing them so much harm. And I get it now with my dad. He was saying that when we went there, he was saying that that our leadership has failed. He even pointed to the leadership and called them out on it while we were there during a meeting. And yeah, it was absolutely clear to him, being a senior NCO retiree, that they absolutely were traitors, absolutely traitors on Fort Bliss. And we know that the VA, the IDS Pueblo, um, which is the Veterans Benefits purse, um, absolutely has corruption and compromise in it. Um, that is absolutely documented, and that can be is being used to compromise and corrupt veterans. And we have a corrupt veterans problem now, don't we? We have a veteran problem now. Uh, just recently on New Year's, two veteran. Well, I think an active duty and a veteran, an active duty and a veteran. We have a problem in the military with a military leadership that is leading the military like it is. Who needs security breaches, right? We've got an entire military of security breaches that are putting us in danger, that are putting our volunteer sons and daughters in danger. And it is just, not even, uh, it's so obvious, right? It's not even questionable. It's so obvious because, we just have one failure after the next. Um, and it's physical. You can see it physical with our volunteer sons and daughters. The need for so many veterans benefits because of all the injuries, because of the failed wars. We see that in the failed return out of Afghanistan. We see the failure everywhere, everywhere. The failure, even when you go on a military base, you see the failure. And the leadership is so, so bad. It has now created individuals, active duty and veterans, that are committing terroristic crimes on our own country. On our own country. Now, with leadership like that, with no esprit de corps, and I've been saying it for a long time, ever since it finally sunk in what my dad was saying, no esprit de corps. With no esprit de corps, no respect for the guidon, the stars and stripes, the defense of the Constitution, The I have your six, no soldier left behind, an army of one, the Medal of Honor ethos, the creeds, with no respect of that. And we see that with the first sergeants. First Sergeant Jay Paulin is absolutely a traitor, and First Sergeant Michael Ruggiero, absolutely a traitor. They need to be stripped. They need to be held accountable for what they have done. Absolutely criminal, and they need to be facing the death penalty. And you might think, oh, it's not as severe with them because they were senior NCOs. I don't know. My dad probably would say, well, I know my dad would say it differently. What Jay Paulin did, and you know, with withholding information that Richard was a whistleblower, withholding the information that he was reporting on the criminal activity within the unit that is connected to the Walmart mass shooting case. I think, the crimes are huge. The crimes are really huge. Um, and so, this is probably well, it is. It's um, a recent development for calling for the death penalty. For a long time, it was like, well, maybe it should be on the table. No, no, it is. They need to be charged, and that absolutely needs to be the result of this. And furthermore, because El Paso is right there on the border, Richard's case has exposed the civilian and the law enforcement cooperation and collusion, um, and this El Paso cartel that is connected with the military leadership in El Paso. And that led to um, a scheming, a scheming of leaders in El Paso, um, to remove and replace a duly elected district attorney, which led to the withholding information and new developments in 2015 that the judges on the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court must be elected, and continuing to withhold that information from the public and allowing appointed individuals to act illegally as judges, ruling over and controlling, and stopping, right? Stopping, but controlling cases, because the judges control the cases. Over 90% of the cases in El Paso County are controlled by the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court. And to have um, the election withheld from the people, the right to election of five judges that sit on that, five slots on that pan, five seats, whatever you want to say. This is really huge because it's taking away the oversight of the El Pasoans uh, in their judicial system, and being under the control of whoever is appointing. And we know that Judge San Madrano had a big role with Hamilton, with Penny Hamilton, right? Judge Penny Hamilton, who's not a judge at all. And I hate to even call her that, because she's an impersonator, because she's a criminal, because she needs to be held. Um, uh, and and absolutely tried for the crimes that she has committed, and stopping ongoing investigations, or stopping investigations into whistleblowers reports, and the scheming of undoing, taking down a duly elected district attorney. And then the other, and the silence of these individuals that are absolutely criminal in letting an illegal get paid $430,000 a year and impersonate a chief medical examiner to determine the cause and manner of death in El Paso County is also totally corrupt. So you've had the crime on Fort Bliss with the money flowing in like crazy, right? Fort Bliss, we love our military. Americans love their military. We want our security, but that has been exploited. That has been taken advantage of. And the money was flowing in at Fort Bliss. The equipment was flowing in, the guns were flowing in, the ammunition was flowing in, the uniforms were flowing in, and now the Pentagon has 7 failed audits. Um, so we know that there was a lot of trafficking, and also so much so that it went to death camps, that it went to hundreds of thousands of children now, mostly dead, that were unaccompanied, being trafficked in over the border into El Paso, into Fort Bliss, held at Fort Bliss, registered at Fort Bliss, and now they're mostly dead. Um, and, using taxpayers' money to do that. Fort Bliss has corrupted El Paso. Fort Bliss has absolutely corrupted El Paso, and it has absolutely lost its. There's no security. Matter of fact, it has made America more dangerous because of the El Paso involving our generals, corrupting the generals, compromising the generals, um, billions of dollars for fentanyl, for other drugs, and then exposing our sons and daughters to that. Um, plans to bring girls in to party, and those girls are mules with, the drugs, and no control over the drugs or the weapons, the barracks being flush with weapons, non-registered weapons, um, then having young 14-year-olds live in the barracks being pimped out to our soldiers, and then taking photographs, videotaping. And we know that there was a lot of child porn and, a lot of videotaping, a lot of that, which leads to blackmail, which leads to, unlawful control over our military, the unlawful control by the El Paso cartel over our military through drugs, through child porn, through videos, through blackmail, through alcohol, through, taking bribes, funneling money from um, trafficked weapons and ammunition and everything like that. Fort Bliss needs to be shut down. Fort Bliss, there is way over, we've written it down, and I need to post it. Way over 100 reasons, top reasons of breaching national security, why Fort Bliss needs to be shut down, and what it has done to El Paso, and what it has done to Mexico, to Juarez, Mexico. Fort Bliss needs to be shut down like yesterday. How many of our sons and daughters have to be raped, have to be murdered, have to be bullied to the extreme that they, quote unquote, commit suicide, that they are ordered to do mental health evaluations, and then they use the mental health evaluations against them after it's been like a court order to do it. And then they manipulate and tamper with documents, with files, They abuse the UCMJ, uh, Article 15's against, Gomer's against. They absolutely abuse all their authority. This is such a disaster, such a absolutely cesspool. It's one big polluted military base. It needs to be shut down. It needs to be shut down. It does America no good. None. Zippo. It does it harm. The reality is that Fort Bliss does America harm. And there are probably many others, many others. And it looks like we need to go and study the book of Numbers, how we need to absolutely redo our whole military, what a godly military would look like. And what do I mean about godly military? Um, I'm talking about one that is disciplined, one that truly has integrity, one that truly does the duty of what it's supposed to do, and that is to defend the Constitution of the United States. One that um, blesses the United States, not curses the United States, because right now Fort Bliss is a curse on El Paso and the United States. And what's going on at the Veterans Administration on Fort Bliss, using the purse of veterans benefits, disabled veterans benefits, the IDS Pablo, to corrupt that system in order to corrupt veterans, to compromise veterans, bribe veterans using America. That needs to be shut down. And then the El Paso um, Community Foundation needs to be investigated for its fraudulent distribution of the Walmart mass shooting funds. All of that needs to be paid back in restitution. All of that. Because you see, when you have a mass shooting, a disaster, and the American people and people around the world contributed to that fund over $12 million to be given to victims of that crime. And then that money is fraudulently distributed to people that will tamper with their birth certificates, will be liars, will be impersonators, and that there's no vetting for that. And who knows who was paid off with money out of that 12 million? Because we know that what happened at the Walmart mass shooting um, is absolutely not. It's been the uh, narrative that they gave us has been totally debunked not by me, not by, it's been debunked by Joe Spencer's own recorded words, debunked by Sam Madrano's own actions, debunked by Bill Hicks, debunked by John Briggs's own filings. It's been debunked. And so we know that the stopping of that case going forward has been a scheme, has been a strategy of Sam Madrano, the judge in the case, Judge Sam Madrano, and Joe Spencer, and John Briggs. We know that they had meetings, that they had their unlawful meetings to stop the case. And so that needs to be absolutely investigated. And one of those that are trying to cover and form the narrative and frame the narrative for this crime to be covered up and continue, and to try to continue this fake narrative that has been totally debunked, is El Paso Matters, is Bob Moore of El Paso Matters. And El Paso Matters is ran by the board of El Paso Community Foundation, the very entity that needs to be investigated for the fraudulent distribution of the Walmart mass shooting victims funds, over $12 million. So, you know, and this is for what? What is this control over? Is it connected to the military? Look, Richard's unit is connected to the Walmart mass shooting case. That is confirmed. 3905 Bliss Avenue, confirmed. Danae Katz and Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, Jonathan Caleb Ambrose, the Hart family, Dallas Hart, Lilani Hart, James Courtney Hart. And we know that that is absolutely criminal activity involving Bradford Bugado, Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado of the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM, Richard's command, G3, and his father-in-law, Nidal Baim of Western Frontier Trading with ammunition and other stuff. And we know that all of Fort Bliss is connected to Karen Chavez Garrett, Thomas Troy Garrett, General Michael Xavier Garrett. The Walmart mass shooting, the whistleblowing of Richard, the murder of Richard, the transport of his remains, the breach in security to allow all that to happen, the cover up, the failure to tell the public that Richard was a whistleblower. Richard Halliday, whistleblower. 100% whistleblower. Confirmed whistleblower. Is absolutely obvious that they were covering that up, and that his murder was their attempt to silence him, for them to continue exploiting and being a curse on the United States and Mexico and on El Paso. And on all the unaccompanied children. Where are they coming from? They're unaccompanied. They were taken. They were taken and trafficked up through Mexico, across that border, and then onto our military base to be trafficked further, to be registered. Let's put a number across their chest, along their back, on their clothes, and let's traffic them even further that they're mostly dead. And we don't even want to go into what happened to them. And that's on the American dime. And that money, whatever was collected, and it's a lot, that has to be laundered. That has to be laundered. So, um, it is not, like, um, without any kind of information that we are just coming forward and saying Fort Bliss needs to be shut down, that these leaders need to be tried for treason and they need to face the death penalty. The tampering with the witnesses, intimidation, the fear that they've invoked because of their blackmail, because think about all of their using cameras to be non-functional when a crime happens to protect the criminals, but yet to record the most despicable things that are happening to a 14-year-old girl living in the barracks, being pimped out to soldiers after allowing all kinds of drugs to be funneled in, and also all the alcohol. I cannot tell you how many when we were there for months and months in El Paso on the streets, 4 to 6 times a week on the streets, how many messages that they were continuously drunk. And that was reported through the soldier that um, defected to Russia. And he was interviewed on Russia Today, I believe it was Russia Today, and said, when I was at Fort Bliss for 2 years, I stayed drunk. I stayed drunk. Now that's failed leadership. Failed leadership. And all I heard in 2020, 2021 is staying drunk. And the command sergeant major, Jake Jakovitz, telling us to our face that they, meaning Clem Coward and director of emergency services that gave the passes, brought in young girls during the lockdown to have these parties. And I'm sure they weren't staying 6 feet apart. No, that's not what was indicated to us. What was indicated to us was it was a booming party. Thank you, Anicia. Thank you for your prayers and your loves. Francis, who are they? Who are they? Thomas Kane, um, Tavita Nusa, Marlon Soto, Sean Bernabe, um, Clem Coward, Jake Jakovitz, Jay Paulin, Michael Ruggiero. Who are they? I've been naming them. Who are they? Joe Spencer, Judge Sam Madrano, James Courtney Hart, Dallas Hart, Lilani Hart, Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, Danae Katzen Gonzalez, Ambrose, Jonathan Caleb Ambrose, Jonathan Slavitt. Who are they? David Park, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick. Who are they? I mean, we can go on and on and on. Who they are. Deborah Sarah West, these pilots at Santa Teresa International Jetport. Who are they? The chief of police at the El Paso ISD, Sam Madrano's wife that works at the prison office there, where that was all leaked from Richard. these imposter medical examiner Mario Raskin Ortiz, the imposter judges, you know, we've been naming them. We've been naming them. And if you're just asking and I'm getting a little bit snippy or whatever, don't take it personally at all. It's 4 years of naming Nadal Baim, Bradford Bugado, Western Frontier Trading, um, the the real estate business, the real estate. What about the PI? Right? What about the PI guy? There, goes on and on and on. Joshua Lyons, Karen. And every time I think about Joshua Lyons, I think about Karen Chavez Garrett, her husband Thomas Troy Garrett, General Michael Xavier Garrett. You're unaware of the El Paso cartel? Well, I just named them. They're very clever. The El Paso cartel, and that's our name for them. Like Chris Martin. What about those that are behind the FitFam El Paso? We own that LLC. What about those behind that? But it all, you can sum it up by saying Lilani Hart. You can sum it up by saying Lilani Hart, because she's the one that confessed. She is the one that not only confessed, but she did a sworn affidavit. She had it notarized. We know what happened at Park University. We know, there's, how deep down these little trails can you go, but that is the compromised individuals of all of the, like the FBI. That's the El Paso cartel. You have Jesus Eddie Nieto Jr. His wife works in intelligence on Fort Bliss. We know how that works. That means that she, Cynthia Hernandez Nieto, absolutely works with Bradford Bugado. They have to work together because he's G3 and she's intelligence. And then she has to absolutely work with Clem Coward. She has to absolutely work with Sean Bernabe and with Eisenhower and with Taylor and with Garrett and those that came before. I have the list right beside. This is the El Paso cartel. Those that are trafficking the drugs, that trafficking the weapons, that are trafficking the ammunition, that are trafficking the humans, the unaccompanied children, the whole death camp, and all of those that were on there, the CPS and Ogle. She's part of the El Paso cartel. She was CYS, Child Youth Services on Fort Bliss. What about the CPS? Claudia, CPS Claudia. Um, I'll remember the name. It'll come back to me. It's like these are the El Paso cartel because they know about the hundreds of thousands of children that are now mostly dead. They know about the witness intimidation, the tampering with files, the tampering with surveillance videos. They know about what was going on at all of the ports of entry, the CBP. They know. What about Christopher Grant? Christopher Grant with Clem Coward and Michael Garrett. You don't think that there's a connection there? This is the El Paso cartel that are in collusion with, because of the meetings with Veronica Escobar. You don't think Veronica Escobar is part of the El Paso cartel? A cartel is a criminal syndicate exploiting El Pasoans, exploiting Americans, exploiting the resources of their country, of their county, of their city for their personal benefit illegally, and then tampering and engaging in harassment, threats, and even murder. And the cover up of harassment, threats, and even murder. What happened to Richard is the bullying, the harassment, the threats, the retaliation, the actions of the abuse of power in the retaliation, and then his forced removal from the barracks, his murder, and then the disrespect of his remains and the transport of his remains and the cover up of the murder. And that goes into all the tampering in the CID, in the FBI, in the El Paso Police Department, in the courthouse, all of those things. That when that all happens together, that's called the El Paso cartel. That's called the El Paso cartel. And we've exposed it, and we have documented it, and we have filed it, and there are ongoing and active investigations into that. And now we have a new administration coming in called MAGA, called President Trump, with new leadership, which includes a new border czar called Tom Homan. And yet, you have the new sheriff, you have the new DA that was sworn in by Judge Guadarrama, the federal judge in the Walmart mass shooting case, which is, sorry, but that, raises red flags. What is the purpose of that? What was the purpose of that? Because you understand that Joe Spencer was lying to the federal judge Guadarrama, lying to him, telling him a different story than what he told in the state case. So what's the purpose of that? Is that a signal to Joe Spencer that he's going to work with the new James Montoya, the new DA? That have you seen his statement of officer? We're going to have to ask for open records to that. We want to see, did he sign his statement of officer, his anti-bribe line, before he took that oath? Because it seems like there's a problem, and that the public doesn't know this, that these officials need to sign their anti-bribe statement before, not after, before they take the oath of office. Otherwise, if it's after, it voids out the statement of officer. That's legal stuff. Legal stuff that we're not so aware of. It took a lot of studying to try to figure out what this was all about. You have to almost get a paralegal degree. You almost have to become a lawyer to understand what's going on, the legal juggling that goes on, and that they absolutely have betrayed us in the medical examiner's office, in the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, in the DA's office, and also El Paso Matters breaking their 501c3 because they have been acting as political attack dogs, framing false narratives using unreliable sources, specifically, but not limited to, the confirmed convicted criminal Leilani Hart, the prime suspect in the murder case of our son, Richard Halliday, being used to put forth a false narrative against the witness in our case. That's crazy. That's so criminal. They need to lose their 501c3. Why should they not have to pay taxes for acting criminally? Why should we fund Fort Bliss when they're just using everything that we give them? The UCMJ, the power, they're abusing the power, they're abusing the UCMJ, they're abusing all of the equipment that we give them. They're abusing our volunteer sons and daughters. It needs to be shut down. And those that participated in all of this, those that participated in the murder of our son need to be held accountable, because murdering our son is just not our son. It is a United States Army soldier whistleblower on Fort Bliss. That's so criminal. And the damage that does to the future of our country is huge. And the relationship that damages with other countries is huge. It brings us so low. So yes, it is absolutely hell for our family. But it has brought in being hell for our country. That consequence. Everything has a consequence. And the evil has to be restrained. Absolutely. At every turn, it has to be restrained. And so, when you think about what is going on in El Paso on the border and the effects it has on Mexico and the effects it has on Texas and New Mexico and especially El Pasoans, and then our volunteer sons, Fort Bliss has to be shut down. They have to shut it down. It is, when cancer is growing, you don't want to feed the cancer. It is a curse. It is pollution. It's a cesspool. And it seeps into our entire military, all the way up into Washington, D.C. You understand, the trafficking goes to many different places, up into Pennsylvania, New York. We've connected it to California. We've connected it to Tennessee. We've absolutely up into Canada. We've connected it to North Carolina. We've connected it absolutely to Washington, D.C., and we've connected it to China, all the way down through Mexico, through the Panama Canal. Fort Bliss is toxic. It needs to be shut down. And we need to have a really a reality check on how we manage our security in our country and how we manage our military. And all these warnings from after World War II for the military industrial complex, those were valid. They've been all vindicated. Those warnings have been vindicated. And we need to readjust how we are going to defend our Constitution, our rights. Because let me tell you, that Constitution is worth defending. because it gives us our rights against, can you imagine, if we did not have the freedom of speech, if we did not have the freedom to bear arms, if we did not have the Texas Constitution to say, look, El Pasoans in that county, when you have a court that has so much power that it has full jurisdiction over your county, you also have power, because your power is that you get to elect these judges. And that has been denied. Denied because the money that was involved in all of this criminal syndicate, El Paso cartel activities, criminal activities, was so great, they were willing to deny El Pasoans their right to vote and choose who they want to be their judges. And they violated the Texas Constitution. And they took down, schemed. Who was that? Joe Spencer, Justin Underwood, Bill Hicks, Bob Moore, schemed to remove and replace a duly elected district attorney, Yvonne Rosales, because of her investigations, her wanting to move the Walmart mass shooting to a court hearing, who wanted to look into the murder of Richard Halliday, who was investigating the distribution of the monies, over 12 million, distribution of the victims fund from the Walmart mass shooting, just because she was doing her job. I would like to know information on minors on base. Where and how did this info come to your hands? Well, it was in the news. It was at Camp Pendleton too. It was reported in the news. They had to arrest the soldier that this young girl was living with. And then if you look up the young girl, she was the stepdaughter of one of the guards, the security guards for Thomas Kane, the director of emergency services. And how did these minors come in? Because we were told in the meeting to our face that they were bringing in the girls to party during the lockdown. I've been reporting on that for a long time. For a long time. And, I'm sorry that I get a little bit worked up, but, 4 years, day in and day out, we're doing this 4 years, documenting, filing it. You know how many filings we've done? You know how many emails we've done? Thousands of emails. Just this last week during Christmas, we had to do in one day, one filing alone, we had to do 198 emails. 198. Judges that you say are on the bench illegally. This is a huge filing that the individuals that sit on the panel that call themselves judges are imposters on the criminal law magistrate court in El Paso. They are imposters. They have botched hundreds, thousands since 2015 of cases. That has been filed. I don't know how many times we filed that with so many people. They all know. They know. And one of the people that knows, and we followed it with so much media too, And it's so hard to respond to because you have hundreds, if not thousands of cases that are now botched, that are botched cases. Can you imagine? I am I'm the judge, but they're not really. They have no legal authority at all. It's like me going in there and saying, "Okay, you can't see your daughter for a year or whatever, or I'm going to send you to prison, or you have to take this drug." All of these rulings, and it was all illegitimate since 2015. And look it up. Look it up. The Texas Constitution, full jurisdiction, a court that has full jurisdiction. Since before 2015, it did not. It had a little snippet cut out of it. And in 2015, it was added in and it had full countywide jurisdiction. And that's when the elections had to be. And they violated the rights of El Pasoans because they want to control the judges, because the judges control the investigations of anything like this. Richard's case, the Walmart case. Just look up Penny Hamilton and the damage that she's done. Look her up. She needs to be arrested. Okay, you have dubbed these people as El Paso Cartel. Why not post pictures of all these people so we civilians know whom you are? I have been. I just posted up Jesus Nieto Jr., the FBI, there. I've posted up Bill Hicks. I've posted up Bob Moore. I've posted up Leilani Hart. I've posted up Dallas. Oh, if you want Dallas Hart's picture, go to the old Interpol picture that they gave for Richard's case, because they tampered with the picture they gave to Interpol. That came from the CID. That came from Tavita Nusa and Marlon Soto. Tavita Nusa was having an affair with Leilani Hart. Dallas Hart is the prime suspect of the prime suspects in the murder of our son. And his face is superimposed on an image that was sent to Interpol. That's really sick. That's really sick. But yet, that is what forensics shows. They know exactly all about this because they are part of this evil people trolling, doing their thing. Yeah. Yeah. But it's, yeah. And, that's been happening for 4 years too. So, and the trolling and the people have been like our CAO, our first CAO. We're on like the fifth casualty affairs officer, the fifth one, maybe the sixth one we have now. I don't know. I have to ask Rob. It's the fifth or the sixth casualty affairs officer that we have. Our first one was asymmetric warfare officer. I'm not kidding. He was an asymmetric warfare officer. And we caught him running a site against us, trying to run a false narrative against us. And of course, he works very closely with the Garretts. Richard's 4-star general. Yeah. So with that, but like I said, everything goes back to the notarized affidavit of Leilani Hart, because that document is why Richard was whistleblowing in the first place. And that just happened to be filed right when Richard was murdered. Yeah. July 2020. July 2020. So thank you so much, everyone. That was, I think, a lot was explained there, and more is going to come out. But the big message is that Fort Bliss needs to be shut down. Thank you. And we need to have accountability, and we want our son's remains. Thank you so much. God bless you for your support. And what we have like 16 days to go. And we'll see. We'll see. But these veterans that are attacking now, um, that is not an accident. That was groomed. So thank you so much. God bless you. And I'll be back tomorrow, God willing.